Hello all, welcome back to our course on digital accessibility, and today we'll talk about a very interesting emerging technology which is called augmented reality and virtual reality. And we'll look at various aspects of this emerging technology and how it can be utilized to make accessible and assisted technology experiences, as well as we'll try to look at it from a perspective of creating inclusive AR and VR experiences, right? So what are the basic design principles to do that? So let us all begin with first trying to understand what is virtual reality versus what is augmented reality. So in a virtual reality experience, the entire environment is in the virtual space. You are interacting with that virtual world via different wearable technologies, input output devices. I'm sure you might be aware of the VR headsets, or haptic gloves, or there may be touch sensitive foot pads and all of those things with remote controls, etc. And you are basically entirely interacting with that virtual world in a virtual reality setting. However, in an augmented reality, we are actually present in the real environment, but the real environment is augmented. That means that there are some additional information, it is enhanced using some additional visual cues, audio cues, or tactile cues through your devices, and you are able to experience the reality in addition to these digital cues, and that is what we call augmented reality. Right, so basically, just to cover a gist about it, in virtual reality we are utilizing head mounted displays, which are your headsets or sensors, to immerse users in fully stimulated digital environments, blocking out the real world altogether and enabling whole interaction through controllers, gestures, motion tracking, all of those things. While in augmented reality, the technology is just enhancing the real world environment by overlaying digital elements such as text, images, which you may be able to experience through smart AR glasses or tap through your phone, tablet, etc. You can place 3D images. I'm sure you might have experienced, these things that you scan here and there is a cartoon which starts dancing, and most of you might have also experienced the VR roller coaster at your nearby malls. If you haven't, please go and try it today, just to get a hang of what is the state of the art in this technology. This kind of technology is not just happening in the gaming or entertainment or navigation and all of these informative aspects. It is also enhancing experiences and finding applications in the healthcare as well as assistive technology sector. And there are several use cases of VR in particularly rehabilitation, counseling, other healthcare aspects. So, of course, PTSD related, we'll talk about it in some of the upcoming slides. Mental health related therapy, some of the people may be hesitant to open up to a human counselor, and also the human counselors may have their own biases because they're also humans. And but a computerized programmed therapist who can actually be a virtual therapist is also becoming much of an interesting domain. Similarly, particularly in pediatric care, developmental disorders, kids can also be a little bit scared to interact with strangers in the case of autism rehabilitation or educational rehabilitation, but they may be, happy to interact with, say, a robot. So all of this is more of under research. A lot of it's finding its these applications in the clinical stages of trials, etc. Then there are, of course, training related simulations. You might be seeing it every day in your in all of these sectors actually. So any risk related or any dangerous situation related work which involves humans going into danger, the training can happen through simulations in the VR environment. So be it flying a plane, be it mining for gold, be it surgeries, training doctors for surgeries, medical training, talking to mental health patients. All of that training can also be enabled through these technologies, and they reduce that risk of that training because it's a learning phase and people might endanger themselves just in the learning curve itself. Other very interesting aspect of assistive tech AR VR usage is in special education and assistive technologies. So particularly in special education, it is finding a lot of application. So one is social and emotional learning. So VR simulations are able to help students with autism or anxiety practice social skills or life skills in a virtual simulated environment like shopping or public transport, and you can increase in a programmed efficient manner. You can start off with people who have social anxiety. You can start off with a grocery shop simulation where there are not a lot of people, maybe fewer customers. Then if they are able to successfully do it, you can gradually increase the density of people in the place so that they are eased into that social environment and in a controlled setting. Then motor skills development. So interactive VR tasks and help in the development and enhancement of fine motor skill coordination. So the lot of VR games are finding application in this domain. Spatial awareness, particularly for students with physical disability or cerebral palsy, all of those. Behavioral training, AR can be used to simulate cause and effect scenario to teach self-regulation, particularly emotional self-regulation to children with autism or ADHD. They can help them in making decisions. They can help them in honing their decision-making skills as well. So I'm sure you might be aware that such situational training is used to happen in SSC and army camps. But such kind of behavioral training can also be simulated in a VR environment in a controlled setting with levels of difficulty, and you can tone down the level, increase the level according to the students' skills. Then, of course, there is the visual and auditory learning. So, AR and VR environments can deliver visually rich and interactive lessons supporting students with learning disabilities who struggle with, say, traditional teaching methods. So, people with dyslexia who are unable to, read and decipher a lot of details. Good a lot of people are exploring, say, three-dimensional models of in augmented reality, three-dimensional models of body parts, etc., so that people can really visually experience those body parts which are very difficult to describe in words and more so difficult to read and understand for a young student. Then there can be some very interesting real world examples. So Florio, for example, uses VR to teach social and life skills. It's an application. Then there is a application called Tilt Brush, so which allows students So this is an example of Florio. This is more of a gamified interaction, and it kind of presents different types of social situations in which allows the students to take certain decisions on the go, and they have to they're presented with different use cases, they're presented with different tools, and they have to kind of pick the right tool, try to make their way through different situations, right? Similarly, then there is an application called Till Brush, which allows students with motor limitations to paint and express themselves in a 3D space. So you can actually paint around yourself, and you're not confined to a two-dimensional flat surface, because that requires a certain way, a certain posture, certain orientation of the hand or fingers or the arm itself. If it's a three-dimensional open space, if you want to start, if you're comfortable keeping your hand this way and you want to start drawing here, it's okay, right? It will be able to draw. So I think this is a very interesting application. And of course, you can go and find some more application, and we can have an interesting discussion in the forums as well about it. There's a lot of innovation going on in this domain, and if you're an entrepreneur who would like to explore this domain, particularly with emerging technologies like AR and VR, creating applications for persons with different kinds of special needs can be a very good gap which you can aim to address. Now we try to talk about the importance of accessibility in AR and VR. So, for example, how to create applications. So far we were kind of talking about how AR and VR is enabling solving certain problems for certain kind of use cases as assistive technology solutions. Then there is another aspect of accessibility in virtual reality, accessibility in augmented reality, right? So which refers to design and implementation of virtual environments that accommodate users with diverse abilities and needs. So the virtual environment itself should have various design aspects so that more and more people can experience that virtual environment. So for example, for mobility impairments, you may require adaptive controls and alternative interaction modes. For visual impairments, you may need to highlight the need for more non-visual feedback. So it can be haptic or audio. And now we are also, I think, moving into olfactory. Olfactory is through the sense of smell. So we can, explore all of these. Hearing impairments make captions, subtitles essential for immersive content access. So it is important. It may seem futile to add captions sometimes in a virtual environment, because in a real environment you don't all the time have closed captioning available, right? So and it may seem like dilution of reality in a virtual reality experience. But it should be an option, at least, to make subtitles and captions appear in case the user demands it. And then cognitive disabilities call for simple, intuitive interfaces that have minimal complexity, and you can utilize all of the other visual design elements that we have discussed in our previous sessions, which apply to or your web interfaces or your digital interfaces, all of your same principles can now be extended into a virtual environment as well. How not to make it cluttered, how to enable affordances so that call to action is present in your interfaces, all of those aspects. So coming to challenges for users with different disabilities in AR, VR environments and applications. So for physical and mobility barriers, many AR VR systems require body movement or gestures or heavy equipment which they may not be able to lift and operate systems in an appropriate manner. So placement of interfaces inside the virtual environment, because it is it is kind of a digitally created virtual environment, right? So I mean, it is possible to make it adaptable. So it is always good to have adaptive positioning of, say, control panels, or so that doesn't uh, necessitates the use of a controller in a certain position, aiming at a certain angle, and then only you are able to control the buttons or the interface. I think that is limiting, in its approach, and one should not go for that. So, adaptive placement of interfaces, or dynamic also. I mean, it can be that you can choose. If it is not adaptive, it can be dynamic. You can allow people to choose their frame of reference, and then accordingly the whole environment shifts. Basically, the ground shifts. If somebody is actually lying on a bed and they want to experience the environment, but you have created it with respect to your horizontal of the real world, and it's fixed in that manner, then it is not possible for them to interact with the environment. So rather, it should be allowed for the user to choose their own frame of reference, rather than the designer or the developer fixing it for them in the virtual world. I think that is the flexibility with the virtual world enables, and the real world does not. Right? We cannot change the horizontal, it's with respect to the earth. But in the virtual environment, we can do that. So why not explore it in that and make it a more inclusive environment? Then maybe visual or other sensory barriers. So VR really heavily depends on visual content. Primarily in gaming and entertainment, we've seen that it's largely visual, primarily because the VR headsets were the initial head point, and of course, more visual information kind of is built into creating that world. But often it lacks, there's no qualms about not creating visual content for the virtual world, but it should not lack audio descriptions or tactile feedback. Because in the real world, you are able to, kind of place your hand on the table, not just see the table, but actually feel it as well. So all of those aspects should not be missing from your virtual environment as well. And there can be cognitive barriers, fast-paced interactions, particularly in gaming, maybe, or entertainment. Too many complex instructions in trainings, etc., all appearing in one go, or non-customizable interfaces can overwhelm users with dyslexia, ADHD, or autism. Lack of inclusive design, so absence of accessibility features can lead to exclusion, frustration, rather than engagement and immersion. So current state of the art is like improving at a very fast pace with platforms like Oculus Quest and HTC Vive, offering adjustable controls, height settings, one-handed play also is possible. These features increase flexibility, inclusion, enable users with different physical abilities to navigate the virtual environments. Therapeutic VR applications, example for anxiety or PTSD, show strong potential by supporting diverse users through immersive experiences. Accessibility implementation is inconsistent across platforms, resulting in fragmented user experience. So, I mean, this is again a challenge. But how can we create inclusive, more inclusive AR VR experiences? So some of the recent innovations are have made paved the way for more enhanced interactions. So recent innovations in VR AR technologies are making virtual environments more inclusive, primarily with the technological development of more advanced interactive wearable devices. Eye tracking enables hands-free navigation, so you don't need a remote uh, at all times to interact with the virtual environment. Just based on the gaze, just based on where your eyes are looking, the system is able to understand what you want to do, and you can gaze on a button for a few seconds in order to enable it. All of those kind of interactions are being possible. Voice recognition allows user to control VR AR experiences through speech. Haptic feedback adds tactile cues that enhance immersion and support navigation. Integrating all of these technologies promote equal access. So then let us talk about the basic design principles for creating accessible VR. So first is based on all of these discussions, if we have to summarize the design principles. So basically interfaces in AR VR should be flexible and customizable. So allowing user to say adjust text size, color, the amount of interface they want to see at a given time, and all of those things should be customizable. User controlled experiences, so you support personalization through adjustable content, or there can be agentic avatars who can kind of assist you in the controls. Try to reduce sensory overload, offer options to limit visual and audio and haptic intensity. If I want to see only a few buttons at a time, it should be possible. Include breaks. The duration and the frequency of break should also be customizable, and use clear and intuitive cues. So, but like what is the meaning of an intuitive cue is also debatable. I mean, it is more of a research question, and there's a lot of research going on in this domain as well. What do we really associate meaning with? So not just intuitive but also semantic cues, semantic audio cues, semantic visual cues is something which is becoming a very interesting area of research for people who are working in the domain of interaction design and cognition. Accessible hardware and controls, so design of ergonomic adjustable headsets and controllers with customizable buttons. So hardware also needs to have customizable designs, and ergonomic kind of shapes and forms, so that people are able to hold it in a much easier and comfortable manner. Adjustable headsets, that has become very the norm with a lot of straps and all of those things. Lightweight headsets is also something people are now working on, because it after a point you're unable to kind of keep it on your head. Clear navigation and universal usability. So, simple pathways, strong visual cues, and spatial orientation. This part, as we discussed earlier, maybe the frames of reference can also be adaptive. That would be the ideal situation, or customizable also. So, how we can try to approach enabling all of these design aspects in our VR applications? So, diverse approaches are being used. I mean, one is trying to tailor features to specific user needs to ensure that individuals with different abilities can effectively engage. So, this is, of course, in line with most of the companies or most of the products. What they're doing is that they set these, whatever these customizable and all of those things to a particular setting, and then create the virtual environment accordingly based on a specific target user's needs. So, for example, if I want to create, based on the Florio example, if you want to create a gamified social skill learning platform for a child with autism. So, this is a well defined problem. And then based on that, you can create the virtual environment, you can enable the settings in the headset, in the virtual environment, in the controllers, that primarily a child is going to use it who has autism, who's on the autism spectrum, needs help in developing social skills. So such situational social environments need to be created. All of those is there. So this is one commonly used approach. And this kind of a customization plays a key role in improving comfort and control and overall user experience. So, at least currently, in the new and up and coming products which are tailored around VR and AR experiences, this is the most common approach which is being used. And they establish an important industry standards and best practices for accessibility in virtual reality. And then they are also trying to enable multimodal interactive elements. So, and the aspect is that the companies who are making the headsets, or who are making platforms for creation of virtual environments, they are developing their products with a lot of possibilities, just by making some customizations and tweaking the package according to a use case. And they are enabling a lot of multimodal interactive elements. So if you want to buy, there like a full body suit is also available, which can enable you to interact in the virtual environment. Of course, I'm not going to talk about the costs at this point, because of course we all can agree that they're quite expensive. Headsets and controllers have now kind of come down in costs a little bit, and they have become more accessible in a lot of use cases that we see. So, from a community perspective on accessibility in AR and VR, user experiences from people with disabilities play a crucial role in shaping more inclusive and usable virtual environments. So feedback is very important, in as discussed in a lot of previous experiences of websites, of applications, and similarly that formula extends to creation of virtual environments as well. And feedback from people with different use cases and different abilities can help you enhance the systems in a much better way, and they play a crucial role in shaping more inclusive and usable virtual environments. Visually impaired users can highlight challenges regarding poor navigation, emphasizing the need for clear audio, haptic feedback, multimodal feedback, etc. Consistent feedback shows the importance of multisensory design to improve orientation, immersion, and overall accessibility. And developers are increasingly adopting user-centered design approach by engaging directly with the communities of special users, from the early stages of development itself in order to make successful products. To summarize this session, AR VR can be a good platform for engaging users with varying disabilities. It is now finding a lot of applications around assistance, rehabilitation, healthcare, and a lot more. Creating inclusive AR and VR experiences is the need of the hour, which requires human-centered design approach and involving users from the beginning till the development process is complete. So in this session, we've not spoken a lot about compliance because so far the compliance standards are still not talking a lot about VR experience compliance. Probably in the near future with WCAG 3.0, we'll be able to see more on compliance related to virtual and augmented reality experiences as well. That's all for this session. See you all in the next session.